Well, hello, that's me again. Today is May 17th. It's Wednesday, I believe. I'm lost completely in the space-time continuum. So let me start with the thing of which probably everybody expects now that I will be talking about. I warned about it. I warned about it not with the start of SMO. I warned about it actually 4 years ago. And you remember this. That was my warning. And it described in details how and why the present NATO, well, which is essentially euphemism for the United States military technology, military doctrine, are not suited for the modern battlefield. Now, before I proceed to discuss the issue of the annihilation, which I warned from the get-go, I mean, doesn't matter what the United States or whoever, the best of the best, creme de la creme, puts on the ground in Ukraine, is going to be annihilated. So, and because it's not designed to fight real war. But before I proceed with that and talking about how Patriot was basically wiped out in Ukraine, here's the thing. What many people do not want to remember is the fact that I remember those Ukrainian trolls and all those, paid trolls, just throwing their hands in the air in ecstasy when talking about that the two storm shadows which have been launched at the undefended civilian targets in Lugansk got through. Well, they are not getting through anymore because, as you can see yourself, yesterday Russian Defense Ministry stated unequivocally that several Storm Shadow cruise missiles which were recently supplied to Ukraine by Britain have been shot down by Russian air defenses over the past 24 hours, they stated. Actually, 7 of them have been shot down. There have been a bunch of other drones, and of course there is a bunch of the combat aircraft which also have been shot down. Yesterday also, apart from that, there were again 7, I believe, HIMARS intercepted. There were another 2 HARMs, high-speed anti-radiation missiles or anti-radar missiles, as many people say. And so you can see yourself, I am on the record and you can quote me on that. United States and NATO, they do not have weaponry which can operate and achieve required objectives or aims while operating with the electronic warfare dense and air defense environment such as Russia presents. They're simply not designed for that. They don't have experience with that, and they, as I already stated, and now you can quote me, United States and NATO, we say United States, it's euphemism for NATO, basically lost the arms race. It lost the arms race about, I would say, 6-7 years ago, but let's talk now about this thing with the Patriot. It's a huge butthurt, as you might understand, and even CNN had to admit, that U.S. assessing potential damage of Patriot missile defense system following Russian attack near Kiev. A US-made Patriot air defense system was likely damaged but not destroyed as the result of a Russian missile barrage in and around Kiev early Tuesday morning local time, a US official tells CNN. Then, of course, the same information went through the Wall Street Journal, another so-called sewer of the American mainstream media. And you know what, as much as I abhor Mr. Lindsey Graham, and he is a political whore and he is supporter of terrorists, but I have to admit I have to agree with him on this one when he stated yesterday that mainstream media are dead. They are not dead. They have been dead for a while, and people who write there, including those military experts, with those, colonels, lieutenant colonels, or even generals, most of them who go online and write for all those outlets, they are not experts. They are stuck in the 1980s and 1990s. They are still stuck on this ice cream, a popsicle, so to speak, of the Gulf War 1.0, and they still think that blowing out the practically defenseless, basically very backward, badly trained and badly supplied army of Saddam Hussein is some kind of military achievement. It is not. But you know what? You know, whatever sold at that time on TV, but now suddenly they face the reality of which I spoke about for so many years. And again, I wrote 3 books about it. Remember what's the title of my first book, Losing Military Supremacy. Well, we have to start with this caveat, so to speak, that there was no military supremacy to start with. And now we're talking about the complete loss of the arms race. And here it is. I mean, you might remember all those Wunderwaffe United States supplied to Ukraine, be that those javelins, those 777s, those NASAMs, what have you, which all of them have been basically wiped out in the combat in Ukraine. And here is what I want to say. Let's recall, for starters, what is the before I forgot, yeah, just to speaking about Storm Shadow, this is the one of the fragments of the so-called Storm Shadow, which has other name, which is Scalp, which is French name, because it is French and British produced missile. And here it is. This is one of the fragments extracted from the one of the shut down missile there. As you can see yourself, it's a French one, which is Scalp. And so much for Mr. Macron, which is, I don't know, French people voted for him so they can enjoy now whatever's coming to them. But let's go back to our Patriot. This is how Patriot looks like. As you can see yourself, it is as pretty much any kind of the air defense complex. It's a collection of several of the units. Most important units are not launchers and not even missiles, which are extremely ineffective, but which are also very expensive. This is how U.S. military-industrial complex makes money. But look at this. A radar set, which is INMQ, I don't remember, I will tell you what is the name of this radar, doesn't really matter. This is the main thing. 1 and 2 are the radar, and of course the command post. This is what really matters here. And after that you can put out several launchers, and basically that's what you do. Your radar scans, the targets, and then, acquires them, tracks them, and develops firing solution. If you can take a look, yeah, this is INMPQ-53. This is the radar. It's the most expensive part of it because while it's, as everybody loves to talk about, it is, super pooper duper, can detect, alien spaceships and things of this nature. I'm on record many times, and I will reiterate it again. The moment it turns itself on, it's done. And that's exactly what happened. Now, you have to also keep in mind that the rules of war, Ukraine violates it constantly, but then again, the Pentagon violates it constantly. They place those air defense systems inside what comes down to sleeping areas, the apartment complexes in Kiev and elsewhere, and this is just, in the hope that Russians will not attack them, because they basically hide behind civilians. So, and that obviously represents some issues, but you know what? Finally, Russians said, you know what? Screw you, and off we go. But look at this. So, if you take a look at those, the way the Patriot, PAC-3, it doesn't matter, PAC-2 is a little bit more ballistic missile oriented. This is how it positions itself, and this is configuration on the ground. You can see yourself, you have a couple of launchers, which have the distance, I don't know, whatever the field manual tells them to spread them, probably 30-40 meters, I would say, between each other. Then you have the cables which are going through to the command post and to the radar. So you have about, radius maybe 100 meters, in which the whole system is located. And so when you look at this, that's yeah, Russians were not shooting for their launchers. The attack was most likely on the command post and on the radar, because once you remove that, those launchers are absolutely useless, and that's exactly what happened. And again, Russians were very, simple-minded in this. They just came out and stated, yeah, it was there. We basically blew it up. Now, Mr. Shoigu, also speaking yesterday, he also stated that allegedly shut down Kinzhal's, hypersonic Kinzhals, by Ukraine, which they state all the time. He said, you know what, we don't even launch that many of them, as many as being shut down by Ukraine. That's exactly the point. They basically, the ghost of Kiev mode, they basically shoot down more missiles than Russia really shoots at them. And here's the issue. What is important in this particular case? If to consider that the let's say Patriot and its launchers have been positioned in the civilian areas, which they have been. So that means in order for you to shoot, to basically blow it out, it will be fairly difficult to do it by the cruise missiles. I mean, obviously nobody will put the Patriot outside in the open field and, ready to receive their visitors in the form of maybe, I don't know, 5, 6 3M14 calibers, or maybe, 3, 4 Onyxes. So it wouldn't handle them either way. But because Kinzhal is an aeroballistic missile, which also extremely maneuverable, and it approaches its target on the terminal vertically down, it's basically shoots itself up and then reorients itself and attacks vertically down. That's what makes it possible to blow things in, very well hidden and very well defended position. And that's exactly what Russia did. So now we can speculate. I'm not interested in speculation how it was done by Kinzhal or by, as I already stated, 3M14 calibers. No matter what it is, the fact remains unchanged. No American system, air defense system, be that Aegis and SM2 and SM3 SM6 missiles, or be that Patriot, which are kind of similar in their philosophy, so to speak, they cannot defend against modern Russian standoff weapons. And we saw the basically proof of this. But so let's go back to about 4 years back, when I wrote my book. But look at this. Before I begin to quote it for you, here what we have. If you look attentively at this video shot, screenshot of the air defense systems operating in Kiev, and this is Patriot operating before being annihilated, you can see yourself the chaotic, almost, desperate launch of everything they got and throwing those missiles, many of which never exploded. They have been suppressed by electronic warfare, and you can find them, you can see many photos of them all around Kiev. They just fell to the ground. Others exploded themselves, and none of them actually intercepted anything. As you can see yourself by the traces, well, looking, yeah, whatever, they evidently used up all 32 missiles of the Patriot with no effect whatsoever. And here it is. 4 years, well, more than 4 years ago, I wrote this. Substitute, however, instead of zircon, use Kinzhal, because, and actually I also speak about it. You have to understand that the people who actually do operations, including people, for example, who do the SIAD, suppress of the enemy air defense in Russia, they are not some kind of, Wall Street Journal correspondents or CNN journals. They are real professionals. They know what is required. And as you can see yourself, I give the basic, very basic calculations on 4 years ago, assuming a very high intercept probability, 0.2, but specifically for this particular case for the Aegis platforms, but Patriot Aegis are pretty much the same. I gave it horrendously high You say, oh, zero point 0.2 is very small. Yeah, it is small, but it's very high for American air defense complexes when operating against modern standoff weapons. And this is for the standard missile, but it really makes no difference. You can use the same zero point 0.2, which is very high, of the Patriot. And as you can see yourself, even brief calculation for the probability of the kill of something, which it has to intercept with the probability of zero point 0.2, you will see yourself that to do this, it needs immediately almost, 10 and a half, 11 missiles to intercept something. And this is, again, we were assuming incredibly high for this type of weapon probability of intercept or probability of kill by the American air defense system. But of course, when you go into the more realistic part and you say, okay, it's not really 0.2, it's more to 0.1, and you can see yourself that you will need already 21 missiles. And again, this is a theoretical probability. And this is what I wrote then. Theoretically, one will need 21 defensive missiles to stop a single Zircon, or use Kinzhal for that, because both are hypersonic weapons and they have somewhat similar profile, Zircon being, of course, powered throughout all flight. And here it is, as you can see yourself, I already underlined that it's either Kinzhal or Zircon. It really makes very little difference. But again, it's theoretical probability. Reality is, and here is, read my lips, the probability of any Patriot or SM-6 Aegis, what have you, of intercepting something like Kinzhal or Zircon is not 0.2, it's not 0.1, it is most likely 0.00 something. In other words, it's approaching 0. And the required force which you will need to the, in this case, for the theoretical probability of the kill, you will need to use, I don't know, I would say 1,000 missiles. Obviously, this is physical impossibility, let alone when we talk about the, well, that's military porn issue today, guys. So let's talk about the what is called combination salvo. You do it in such a way that, apart from the fact that, for example, Caliber 3M14 has its own electronic warfare or electronic counter measures, that means it gets, jamming things while it flies on the terminal. So evidently we can suspect now that Kinzhal does absolutely the same. And then you have obviously the drones and all kinds of other things which Russia produces in huge numbers, which are capable to suppress pretty much any kind of air defense. And we saw it, in practice. And now we have the incredible amount of butt hurt circulating in the US media. And of course, they need to basically face the fact that most of those weapons are not usable in the modern warfare. It's like Bradleys. How long Bradley will exist against modern Russian, not necessarily even modern, how much it can take in terms of Cornet. And Cornet is 90s, actually, technology. ATGM, I mean, yeah, it just goes out on the open and it's done, basically. And the same when you look attentively at the losses of the Ukrainian armed forces, supplied now with this collection of hodgepodge types of the, bottom of the barrel Western military equipment. Now it's even Ukrainians themselves admit that there's like more than 300,000 KIAs. Multiplied by 2, you have about 600,000 wounded, maimed, what have you, and you have the whole picture, what this war is. And then now you have the issue of which I warned, oh my gosh, I was doing this for many years. I mean, American Table of Equipment and Organization and Equipment, TOE, is not designed. And doctrinally, the United States is not designed to fight real, serious, combined arms war in Europe. Well, if you say that I sound like Douglas McGregor, for example, yes, I do, because actually we arrived to this is completely independently. Douglas McGregor arrived to this conclusion from his combat experience, his academic background, and of course policy background. I arrived at from my experience and knowing, of course, Russian military way better than anybody in the so-called among the bunch of the parasites who pass themselves for the Russian experts in the United States or in the West. I just know because I'm a former military professional. So, and when you look at this, you say, wow, it's absolutely amazing how this could be predicted. Yeah, it's not prediction. It's called operational planning. There are people there who know what they're doing. They have modern computers who calculate required force. They calculate those, what is called the criteria of effectiveness. And criteria of effectiveness is usually probability. And that is why military always love their probabilities in 0.95 or 0.97, let alone 0.99. That's how you calculate your probabilities, because you want to have almost guaranteed achievement of your aims. Be that like the tactical episode which we had, because annihilating the Patriot is a tactical issue. It's a tactical operational complex theoretically, but truth is, I mean, you know, what can I say? It's a just tactical task. And when you say, how can you view this? Let me put it this way. I already stated many times before, I will repeat it again. Here it is. You can easily, in terms of the SIAT, or suppression of the enemy air defense, you can easily adapt the model of the salvo equations. We're talking about basic salvo equations, but even the basic salvo equations allow you to see the attrition of your force. For example, it doesn't matter how you call your force, A or B, doesn't matter, but you will see your deltas. Basically, how you're going to be losing it, how your force will be attrited by, for example, type of the weapons, which we spoke about today. And this is Kinzhal, and this are 314 calibers, and it could be any kind of other missile. And in the end, when you look at this, you will come back to this basic formula when it becomes very simple. That you have a number of the missiles launched at you, alpha being the number of the carriers, but in this particular case, in the case of air defense, you can easily discount this and simply calculate A, number of missiles, and B1 being number of your units. And then you will see yourself that it all comes down when you consider the extremely high probability of the success by, let's say, something like Kinzhal, Zircon. You will see yourself that actually it comes down to basically one missile per one unit of whatever have you. And in case of Kinzhal, because of the immense power and explosion, you can see this explosion on the TV, anywhere on YouTube. There was a second explosion, evidently also near it, I believe. It was probably second Patriot, or maybe simply attacking the second. It was the second echelon missile arriving. So if you see this size of this explosion, and that's why Russians right now sitting and laughing at this, that they assess damage. Yeah, sure. I mean, consider the fact that you have probably equivalent of, considering hypersonic speed of Kinzhal and its extremely high load of explosives. I don't know, you have the radius of 100 meters, anything within it will be killed and damaged beyond the repair. So that's why they are assessing damage. Okay, sure. So, but everybody saw everything they needed to see, and that is why you will see yourself now Russian military contracts, defense contracts growing, already being this number 2 in the world after the United States. They will continue to grow. United States will have its military contracts around the world be narrowing, so to speak, and shrinking, if you wish. And the only thing they will be able to do is to twist hands and, you know, basically sell all this, let's put it this way, second-rate military equipment, which is designed basically to bomb some kind of the undeveloped nations, and that's about it. And then before I go explaining all this, I want to show you something which I think so is no less important than what we knew from the get-go: inability of the United States military technology to handle modern war. Here it is. A couple of days ago, actually three, Elena Karavaeva, one of the major contributors to the RIA News, she wrote a piece which is called "Revenge." The West was preparing for the war with Russia for 30 years, which I agree, actually. And then she goes about the interview of Jeffrey Sachs, what he told about basically what she states about that the West was preparing for this war for 30 years. But what is important in this article is the shift of the focus from Anglo-Saxon part of NATO, which is of course, United States, Great Britain, but to Germany. And this is the fact, and this is the shift of Russian perception and Russian attitudes to Germany as a state, not as people necessarily. There are still many, very many decent German people. Many of them actually are moving to Russia. And I'm not talking about just Russian Germans. But she speaks about the fact that here we are. This is your Germany, starting from Hans-Dietrich Genscher and late Helmut Kohl, who basically were lying through their teeth, which they did, because the only thing they cared about was not unified Europe or some kind of the peaceful settlement, but the fact that they needed to somehow revenge the humiliation of Germany, and not by the Western allies, obviously the Soviet Union, which bear the brunt of the war against the German National Socialism and Axis forces. And that was their point. They lied because they needed the unification, and of course they needed some kind of way out of this. But they considered the historical, well, not destruction, but I mean, yeah, putting Germany down. And Lord Ismay might have had a very succinct description of NATO: to keep Russians out, keep Germany down, and us in, meaning the Great Britain and United States. But the point is that Germany was down thanks to the Soviet Union. Allies contributed in the end when it was already all clear. And when you look at this, you have to understand there is a fundamental major shift in Russia. And Germany, I don't think so anybody in Russia wants to communicate with Germany anymore, to talk to them. And I'm talking about, of course, the political elites and German state as a nation. As a people, there are many Germans who, again, as already stated, moving to Russia, not only Russian Germans, but actually German Germans, and Russia opens them with the open hands, and the stream is colossal by different estimates. Don't quote me on that. I know it from some people, including those people who have their channels on the YouTube and who actually are very well connected to the Russian government, especially immigration services. We're looking at around 2 million people moving to, this is primarily from Germany. This is just the start of it, and I wrote about this already in 2014, 2015, 2016, when I stated that the spring eventually will turn into the river. And now many people who are not brainwashed in Germany, people who are critical, and especially people, very many of them from the Eastern Germany, former GDR, including not just, as I already stated, the Russian Germans, which were originally from Russia, but German Germans who see where Germany is going. They want out, and I totally understand them. I don't blame them, because Europe is down, and especially after Foreign Minister of India yesterday basically told Mr. Borrell to shut up about whatever India does with Russian oil. You understand now. They cannot even face reality. They are exposed completely. And when people ask me about the Russian strategy, that's Russian strategy. Russia is in strategic defense now, waiting when the last, basically whatever remnants of the armed forces of Ukraine and Western weapons will arrive to be annihilated, and then we'll see. Whatever's going to happen. And again, don't forget, American basically politics have been Ukrainized to the unbelievable degree. And but what can I say? I can only quote many people. Some of them are my good friends. Others, like Douglas McGregor, I just know about him. Well, he stated that people who run combined West, but then again, there's nothing, no news there. They're incapable of anything. I look at those military people on the American side. They are propagandists. They won't be able to run anything in the modern war, and we know that. Look at America's record in terms of their wars. So, this is what I wanted to tell you today. And as always, guys, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And I want to express my profound gratitude to my sponsors and my patrons for supporting me in doing what I do. I also, guys, those who buy me coffee, believe me, I wish I could respond to many of you. I just simply don't have time. Believe me, I know who you are, and I appreciate all your efforts. Thank you very much. So this is my talk for you today, and guys, have a nice rest of your week, and I'll talk to you later. Bye bye.